Episode 13 of RWBY. This episode I thought was pretty good because, last week, of course, ended with Cardinal finding out that Jaune actually, faked his way into Beacon. And, we obviously knew he'd kind of keep his promise and pretty much use Jaune in any way he saw fit. And what I enjoyed about this episode is that it actually takes place, a couple of days after. It might even be, a week max, but at least a couple of days after. And Cardin's been using Jaune for all sorts of stuff. And what I enjoyed most of all is that they didn't show us all the menial little tasks that Jaune had to deal with. They didn't put that in multiple episodes. And it's probably because as the creators of the show, they know how they work. And obviously we get episodes that are 6 to 7 minutes in length, normally speaking. So they didn't want to waste any time showing us an episode where they were just menial tasks that Jaune had to do because he was kind of on a leash now. And they skipped right to the end of it, where at the end of this episode, Jaune does fight back because what we didn't see is all the little the other tasks that he's been forced to do. And he talks about how Pyrrha won't talk to him, and how he has to deal with Cardinal telling him what to do because obviously of his secret. And he gets some Jaune gets some very sage advice from RWBY, which I thought was kind of funny. She's like the youngest person, but age doesn't really have much. It has some to do with knowing certain things, but it's really just who you are and random right place, right time sort of deal. And both Jaune and RWBY are in the position of leadership, and RWBY, simplifying it, of course, by saying nope. She tells Jaune, you can't be a failure because you're a leader now. It's not really possible because it's not just about you. You have to help your friends, just like I do. We have to look after everyone on our team because we aren't just failing ourselves. We're bringing them down with us. So that little bit of spirit from RWBY does sort of help Jaune you know deal with Cardinal basically towards the end of the episode. But more than anything, I like to think that it is the fact that Jaune and Pyrrha do have a connection. And even though Pyrrha in this episode, she's obviously gotten to the point where she knows she can't help Jaune. Like I said, it's been days, so she probably tried in the time that we didn't get to see, even after Jaune pushed her away in last week's episode. Pyrrha probably tried again anyway because that's just her character, and Jaune kept pushing her away, especially since Cardin did know, so he couldn't tell Pyrrha Cardinal knows because, or Cardin knows, because he felt that would cause even more trouble because they'd start arguing, and Cardin would just say, well, forget it, then I'll just rat you out. So Pyrrha in this episode doesn't have that nice loving attitude towards Jaune because he kind of he pushed her away. And that can happen. You push people away when they try to help you, and then it seems like they don't really care about you, but they still do. They're just unable to help you because you won't let them. And that's kind of how she was in this episode, where when they get to the forest, Cardin says, come on, buddy, and Jaune looks at Pyrrha and she just looks at him, and he kind of just sighs and looks down, and she breathes because I think she really wants to hurt Cardin, and she doesn't know why Jaune's doing what he's doing, but for whatever reason she knows that Jaune won't stand up for himself, and she's just upset that she can't really help him. And at the same time, she's probably upset at Jaune for also just not standing up for himself. But I thought it was interesting that they did, like I said, they skipped to the end and they didn't show us all these little filler things for no apparent reason. And at the end of this episode, Jaune does decide he's not going to do what Cardin says anymore, and he throws the jam at him, And unfortunately, it ends right there. I was really hoping that that wasn't the end, but I figured it had to be. And sadly, it was. So we have to wait another week, which I feel like it's so long between episodes for the show. It feels like so much longer than a week. Like just more than it does for any other show that comes on weekly for me. I feel like waiting for this is so much worse, and it's probably because of the fact that it's so short. I can just watch it. Boom, I'm done. So it's kind of like watching a little clip, on YouTube or something, and then you're just done. But I can't wait for next week because I'm excited to see Jaune fight back, because I'm sure he will. He's already taken a stand, and he decided not to throw the jam on Pyrrha because she basically would have just been swarmed by wasps, and that would probably kill somebody, even as strong as Pyrrha, because they're wasps. But he took a stand, and next week I'm really hoping we get to see him somehow use his aura, and that's what I was really hoping for. I thought he'd be attacked, and his aura would kind of just randomly activate, and he'd kind of deflect the attack. But hopefully we get that in next week's episode. And even if we don't, I still think he's gonna beat Cardin. At least Cardin, if he doesn't end up getting jumped by all the guys. But since they're all so close to the other teams, I feel like he'll be able to fight Cardin one-on-one. And then, if the other guys do happen to jump in, the other teams will help him out, because obviously they like Jaune more than they like Team Cardinal, because those guys are, just voiceless douches, really. But, I really enjoyed this episode. Like I said, I was mostly glad that we didn't have to see, Jaune basically get tortured for a whole episode, because I really would have hated to see that, because Jaune's such a great character, and even with him, technically we know he's a liar and a faker, he's still a great character, and, even though he did something wrong, you want him to succeed, because it's the only thing that he feels he can really do, and it's just what he wants in life. And plus, he's just been, written as a good guy, so you kind of want him to succeed. But, I'm really excited that we didn't have to see him get tortured for a whole episode, and we just had to see him do, a little bit, and then, at the end of the episode, we got him fighting back. And next week, like I said, hopefully we'll see him win against Cardin, and Cardin will finally just say, obviously you're not as weak as I thought. I respect you now, or even if I don't, I'll at least back off and not, bully you. So I'm excited for that. And, Nora had her funny moment, of course, when she, swallowed a whole jar of jam, 2 seconds, while I was trying to, fill up the other jar. So that was really funny. And of course in the beginning, she's just bouncing on the bed and everybody else is calm. And that's just, little quirks from her. I'm hoping, I think I've said this for 3 weeks straight now, that we get more from Nora and Lai, their backstory and stuff like that. So I'm still hoping for that, but that probably won't be next week, because, odds are it'll be the conclusion to, Jaune, Cardin, their sort of arc, really, when you think about it. So it'll probably be that, and then in 2 weeks we'll get more story as far as Lai and Nora, and if not that, then we will be getting the tournament, which will also be amazing in its own way. So I'm excited for that still, for anyone who might have forgotten from last week's episode. So we have a tournament still coming up, but for right now, Cardin versus Jaune. So however that plays out, I think is going to be great for next week. So comment below, let me know what you thought of this episode, and mostly, how crazy are things going to get for next week, and what do you want to see most. Thanks for watching.